Welcome to GBR Insights. You've joined myself, Hannah Damyan. Our guest today is from a brand that is mostly known for its chic, minimal furniture design, not to mention sustainable. Many of us will be familiar getting lost on the multi-story shop floors on a rainy day, and you always find yourself hungry and heading to the food court to eat those signature meatballs. I'm of course talking about IKEA. Today, I'm joined by Peter Grimvall, the Supply Chain Design and Planning Manager of IKEA. Peter, how are you? It's great to have you on here.
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Peter, could you tell us a little bit about yourself to our community members?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I'm Peter Grimvall. So I lead the supply chain design and planning at IKEA, which include leading our supply chain design practice, which design our future network, as well as leading the supply chain planning, both in terms of actually the planning operations and also the digital and the process development. And then my role is also to keep the overall sales and supply planning across IKEA together. And I think what is interesting is actually to see how these areas, design and planning, are actually growing together, both from a competence and from a digital point of view.
Excellent. Now, as a brand, we all know that IKEA is at the forefront of sustainability. I would also argue that you're a disruptor of retail supply chain. I described my experience as a consumer earlier, but little do people know that much of the shopping experience is due to a great supply chain and demand planning. So you can have the product you want when you want without wasting inventory or logistical costs. But what's more important is we have the capabilities of Industry 4.0 and digitalization, as you mentioned, which would be interesting to see how it's transforming and impacting the way you and your team work at IKEA. So I have a few questions for you.
Yeah, sure. Bring them on.
IKEA recently developed a smarter demand forecasting tool that uses artificial intelligence for the IKEA supply chain. So tell us, how does this new demand sensing tool differ from the demand planning tool IKEA had previously?
Yeah, firstly, I would say it actually complements our existing demand planning tool. And the idea came from that we saw an opportunity to improve accuracy in the short-term horizon, covering, you can say, the majority of our order creation that we do to our suppliers and partners. By actually leveraging then a larger data set compared to before. And it has also been a good strategic fit to prepare us as a company actually for a true omni-channel retailing. And what is new with the demand sensing is that here we can actually forecast every article, every day, every fulfillment unit with an automated and customized algorithm. And this is to compare to our previous setup, which was then based on that we can do every article, but then on a country level and then on a weekly level. So this granularity helps us really in our daily operations in our entire value chain, from our retailers to our suppliers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. So what sort of data sets or data sources are being used?
Yeah, so when we talk about the close future, we believe that options for data sets actually increase, because we know much more about the near future than we know about the far future. So we have a capability actually to use, I think it's over 200 different data sets today. However, one key development has actually been to have an algorithm selecting the data sets that brings the most value. And you can simply say it's the work is actually to bring out the signal from all the noise. And this can actually be different per product and location. So there's not one, fixed data sets that we are using. So this can be different per product and location.
Mm-hmm. What would be an example of some of the new sources that you'd be using?
Yeah, many. I think most people will not be surprised by the examples, but of course, it's a lot to look into the previous, to understand the history, to be able to predict the future in terms of, how we price things, how much we sold, how we actually position things. And then, of course, simple things like, what day of the week, and also like moving events, like you have different events throughout the year. Like Christmas is usually fixed, it happens every year, it's 24th or 25th depending on the country you live in. However, Easter, for example, to make a good forecast over Easter there, I think that is really a moving event, which can be in late March, it can be late April or early April, etc. Yeah, so taking in those data sources helps us a lot actually.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so how quickly is this information from the pipeline of the data processed? So what would you define as real-time data?
Yeah, actually, we like to talk about something like close to real time, because for most data sources, and we can say it also differs depending on the need. Of course, like inventory status for our customers, yeah, then of course we need to be very close to real time, yeah. And then on the other hand, maybe the inventory status in our distribution centers, we can, for example, afford to be a bit slower, yeah. But in any case, we always strive to achieve close to real time, so not real time, but yeah, to be close to real time. And if that is something that is updated every 15 minutes or every hour, depends of course on the different data sets and the possibilities that we have.
Okay. Now, in the IKEA article you were recently featured in, you mentioned that you now have 98% accepted forecast with only 2% corrected, as opposed to 8% in the past. How does this translate for a typical case like Oslo? Say a 14% inventory reduction, 12% more sales, etc.
Yeah, that's correct. And thanks for staying on our website and reading some of our articles. Yeah, it's very much appreciated. But then, yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so our approach to business cases is to pick the main measurable benefit. So demand sensing can of course improve several factors like service, and then in turn sales, and then inventory, accuracy, etc. And at the point of time we got started, that was actually, yeah, believe it or not, it was actually pre-COVID. Yeah, feels like a long time ago, and we were in a situation where we actually achieved agreed service level in all our regions. So therefore, when we started up demand sensing, this was purely built on a case to improve accuracy and actually the direct impact on the safety stock calculation that we have, just to keep it very simple. And somewhere around 5-10% of total inventory reduction, which for us as a vertical integrated company, that is a lot.
Okay, so this whole demand sensing is a bit of a trend. Lots of companies are trying to adopt it for good reasons. A better service level, lower inventory, time efficiency, to name a few. What is it about this demand sensing tool at IKEA that sets you apart from the other companies who might also have this?
Yeah, maybe we are too internally focused sometimes, or actually maybe that we are customer focused, because actually sets us apart. That has maybe never been like an objective. Our objective has always been to lower cost and maintain the agreed service level, and then lower cost that we actually can pass on to our customers as lower prices and deliver to our vision on making everyday life better for the many people. Then of course, I think just to make it work in our overall planning concept is probably what sets us apart when, for example, I compare with industry peers. Yeah, I think that is a challenge actually, how to integrate this in your planning concept, and those that are successful have actually integrated it well in their overall planning concept when we talk about demand sensing.
Okay, so you touched upon it a little bit earlier, but I understand the demand sensing builds up knowledge from a local perspective with the local customer at the center of its forecast. Once the local store forecast is made, it can then go up to the market, country, region, and global levels. Can you give an example of how this looks like or what this means?
Yeah, you're fully right here. Yeah, so it really puts the customer in the center. and we become more accurate in a local context, which is really good for our omni-channel retailing. So the bottom-up approach enables us to actually capture the differences within the country, which was our previous level of demand planning. And even small countries like where I'm based here in Switzerland, we have different cultures and different preferences depending on where you are in this country. Yeah? So demand sensing really allows us to better pick up those signals, and that will then be the aggregated country forecast instead of the opposite, you have to have something top down and use, for example, different split keys to try to be average across the country.
Like a customized approach rather than a blanket rule.
Exactly.
So what were the main challenges you had in developing this tool, and how did you resolve those challenges?
Yeah, I think there are always challenges in anything that we are doing. Yeah, otherwise it's usually always done. And I would say, for example, for us, good leadership in the initiative and the work together with our stakeholders and partners has actually made it a success. But if we go into the challenge, our main challenge was actually to put all the surrounding infrastructures in place to actually support demand sensing, because we were first in many aspects in this area. The need of the new data sets and the frequency to have it updated and actually how to monitor the performance and so on. So I would say where we are today from a digital point of view, it would have actually been a lot easier to implement demand sensing.
Okay, so when do you expect the tool to be rolled out globally?
I think that we have like you can say like a value optimization approach where we are constantly reviewing, which countries could benefit the most of having this, and then we make the schedule on this. Yeah. Then of course, target is always, of course, to reach rather large volume. So that means that many of the big countries are now in the pipeline to have this rolled out, but then actually fully implemented, we operate in over 50 different markets. So of course, it will take time to cover all countries. Yeah. Also, when we come into situations where they operate on different ERP systems, etc., that we also need to adapt and so on. But we focus on the big markets for now to create the big difference for our supplier base, and then we will continue with our smaller countries.
And this is a kind of a question to do with change management, but with a new tool and process in place, were there new roles and responsibilities that were created?
No, I would actually say rather the opposite, that with the improvement, we can actually simplify our roles and responsibilities as we will have less deviations. Yeah. And that is also something that we overall try to do, that always review, do we actually need a new role, or can we actually simplify the organization instead? Yeah, I think all big companies have a very complex organizational setup, and whatever we can do to simplify will also actually improve, I would say, the overall performance also.
Okay. Now, I know you're looking at more opportunities utilizing artificial intelligence and innovation for supply chain within IKEA. For example, supply chain planning. Could you elaborate on what it is you're trying to achieve and what steps you're taking to make this a reality? And also, what will be the obstacles that you'll potentially face?
Yeah, so let's start with some of the different parts, or maybe take it from the beginning, because how we see it is that demand sensing is really like the first step that serves as a base actually to enable further development, because demand sensing, what it brings to us is, of course, that now we have a larger data set that we can actually use in our planning. So when it comes to AI, we are working on several tracks, and to share a few, one is about to be more dynamic about our planning parameter optimization. So to run the supply chain, we need a lot of policies that steers decision. Yeah, and this is actually an opportunity to optimize those policies in a new and in a more dynamic way compared to before. I don't know what it would be a good example, but for example, maybe in the long past, you had a rule of thumb that was valid for everything, and now we can actually create, for example, solution and algorithms that are getting more customized for the policies and also automated that adapts to the surrounding changes as well.
Mm-hmm.
And another track would be and I think that is something that I have a lot of passion in, which I find very interesting. That is actually to start to digitalize decision making, which then bring our, AI efforts into a new level. And simply said, you can split planning into two parts. Yeah, you have the planning part, and then you have the problem solving part. And the planning part, of course, this is where most companies, and the same with us, we put in a lot of efforts. Demand sensing is just one example of this. Yeah, we want to improve the accuracy. We want to have more automation in the planning. Yeah. But of course, from a co-worker's perspective, you always have the reality that we have to solve problems, and we are solving problems every day. Yeah. So our idea is actually, how can we collect those problems and how those problems are solved, and actually recommend how future problems would be solved. And I think this is a very interesting track where we actually come quite far in terms of testing this. Yeah. And that will, of course, help all our planners, because there are many repetitive problems that we are trying to solve, and then planners can actually dedicate their time, spending more time actually on the more complex and difficult problems to solve. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think overall, what is the challenges is always when you try to do something new, it's very difficult to make a perfect plan on how to execute it, because and that has actually never been our ambition either. Yeah? Because like how we came into demand sensing as one example is that we started with an exploration. It was a data scientist that we gave the task. Can you, with the help of more advanced algorithms, actually beat the current forecast for one article in one story? And I think that is maybe the big obstacle, is that we come from an environment where we have had a lot of fixed programs, fixed projects with a dedicated timeline and so on. And here we have adapted a more agile ways of working approach, where we are constantly improving every day. So that means this digital decision making is not like one project, but we take steps every day to deliver to one day actually to have something that we can be proud about and say that now we have somewhat of a digital decision making in place.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is the biggest challenge, that the organization is used to something else.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So do you have a lot of data scientists within IKEA, or are you sort of on the trend of recruiting more?
Yeah, I would say both. We have already several or many in different parts of IKEA also, and that is has been our approach. That I think, especially when it comes to supply chain planning, I think the talent pool is not like existing that we can advertise for a data scientist with supply chain planning experience. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we bring in people, and we also take internal people that are not data scientists but has the ambition to develop into this field, and support them with the training to actually become a data scientist. Mm-hmm. But what we focus in is actually that we want to have data scientists that really understand the subject also, yeah, and actually can dedicate and work side by side with our planning community, as an example. So, or I would say they are part of the planning community, but they can work side by side with the planner and have good discussions because they understand each other's work.
Mm-hmm. It sounds as though you mainly work in-house to get these sort of solutions, or in case of this demand planning tool. Do you typically work with other vendors? Yeah,
I think it's both. And if we take, let me think, two examples. So if you take demand sensing, we started off on our own. And then when we sort of had a proof of concept saying that, with leveraging on a larger data set and also new algorithms, we can actually create a forecast that is much more accurate and much more granular compared to before. And then we simply had a make or buy decision. And there we actually decided to buy the solution, actually to have a quick rollout and also to have the user interface. So, for example, if we have the data science capability, we don't really sit with like the user interface creation and that part. Yeah. So that was a big motivation actually to go for a buy. And then we have done another case where we, for example, in this planning parameter optimization or the policy optimization, and that is of course then very maybe unique for IKEA, and there was no product actually to really buy that could do that. So then we actually developed our own product to take care of this. So we always look into either make or buy when it comes to data science contributions.
Okay, fantastic. Peter, that brings us to the end of this session. How did you find that?
Yeah, I think it's always nice to connect to you and also to be part of the different events. And I think talking about things that you have a big passion in, actually, how to leverage new technologies and especially artificial intelligence in the area of design and planning. I think this is a super interesting topic.
Mm-hmm. Now, I have a personal question. When you're out shopping at IKEA with your family, do you ever think, gosh, the supply chain is phenomenal?
Yeah. Then, of course, we have to be honest to ourselves that COVID is putting extreme challenges to our supply chain. Yeah. We are facing raw material shortages, and we are also, of course, when it comes to transport, the whole container shipping industry across the world makes it super difficult right now. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then, but I would say, apart from that, actually our setup in the family is different because our office is next to the IKEA store. So shopping with the family in our case means that the rest of the family writes a list and I go and buy it at the store after work.
All right, that sounds
good. No, but of course, when you are on the shop floor, I must still say after 7 years at IKEA, super impressed every day. And actually what really impresses me lately is that how we have really transformed during the COVID period. Really transforming our stores in lockdown to make them, a fully fledged fulfillment center to continue to serve our customers during this actually very challenging time. I think that has been truly impressive. Mm. And also and I also know all the work that had to be in place, just from an IT infrastructure actually to cater, to, for example, triple the online sales. There was some serious works that had to be done also in the background. So now I'm big respect and very impressed.
Excellent. Peter, a huge thank you for your time and patience. I wish you all the best for your future supply chain endeavors. Thanks again to our community members for joining us. And any last words, Peter, before we say goodbye?
No, I can just say welcome to IKEA, and I hope we can, during this very difficult time, actually provide as good as possible customer experience. Yeah, but I think you just have to bear with us that there's a lot of external challenges that makes it actually very difficult to provide a very good product availability. But things are improving, and we are working every day very hard to make it better.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter. See you guys next time. This was GVO Insights with Hannah Damian.
Thank you. Bye-bye.